Hello everyone and thank you for tuning into TradeChat. My name is Panzer and today we're going to be talking about the patch 7.0 class changes for monks. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you do, remember to rate it thumbs up. The overarching theme in Legion for class changes is to make gameplay more consistent with lore. And the lore, or the fantasy of a monk, is someone who finds balance in all things, or seeks to find balance in all things. Just as dangerous as they are on the battlefield, they are equally peaceful when they are not in combat. They find their strength in serenity and meditation, and they focus that power into a unique style of martial arts which they can use to tank for their allies, heal them, or even defeat their enemies. So what we're going to see in Legion isn't so much defining each spec, since they already are a tank, a healer, and a DPS. They're pretty well defined. But we're going to see changes being made to better align their lore and their story with the gameplay mechanics. The biggest general change for all specs of Monk is that stances have been removed, and the reasoning for this is that pretty much every spec of Monk only used one stance anyways. So you had Brewmasters using Sturdy Ox, Windwalkers using Fierce Tiger, and then Mistweavers would switch in between using Spirited Crane and Wise Serpent. What Blizzard did is they baked those stances right into their spec baseline. So now, we'll have Brewmasters already have the effects of Sturdy Ox, and Windwalkers will have the effects of Fierce Tiger, and then they removed Spirited Crane, and Mistweavers will have Wise Serpent baked into their spec. And we'll talk a little bit more about Spirited Crane in a moment. The fantasy of being a Brewmaster monk is one of a trickster. They are skilled martial artists who stagger around, evading and frustrating their enemies. They may not be as sturdy as other tanks in the game, but they make up for that with mitigation and dodge. Right now, Brewmasters focus a lot on huge absorption shields and just in the nick of time heals, which doesn't really line up with the theme and the fantasy of being quirky and unpredictable, evasive, maybe even a little drunk monk. So in 7.0, we're going to see a lot of changes and tweaks to their kit to make them better line up with the theme of what it is to be a Brewmaster monk. One of the first big changes that a monk tank will notice is that Guard is no longer part of their baseline kit. Guard is still available through a PvP talent, but it's not going to be much use to you in a PvE environment. This change was made to bring Brewmaster's fantasy in line with their gameplay, which is supposed to be evasive and dodgy and staggery and not so much like big, protective, bubbly. Brewmaster's mastery has also been reworked. Elusive Brawler no longer increases stagger by 5% and attack power by 5%. Instead, every time you're hit with a melee attack, you are granted 8% increased dodge chance, stacking up to 100% until your next successful dodge. Once you've dodged an attack, you reset your baseline dodge amount. Brewmaster Mastery still increases attack power, but now for 8%. Stagger has also been updated. In 7.0, Stagger will delay 35% of physical damage, taking it over the next 10 seconds instead of instantly. Magical attacks will be delayed at half the effectiveness. Purifying Brew has been updated to reflect the changes to Stagger. In 7.0, Purifying Brew will hold 50% of your damage delayed with Stagger. By default, this has a 21-second recharge rate and can hold up to 3 charges. Purifying Brew shares charges with Ironskin Brew. Ironskin Brew is a new ability for Brewmasters that increases the damage you delay with Stagger by an additional 40% for 6 seconds. By default, it takes 21 seconds to recharge and you can hold 3 charges. Since it shares charges and a recharge rate with Purifying Brew, you'll need to carefully budget your charges to ensure you can properly prevent and react to damage taken. Due to the removal of Multi-Strike as a stat, Gift of the Ox orbs are no longer tied to Multi-Strike. Instead, they'll have a chance to spawn every time you take unmitigated damage. Brewmasters have a new passive ability called Celestial Fortune, which gives you a chance equal to your critical strike chance to be healed for an additional 65% of the amount you are healed. This functions similarly to Prot Paladin's Shining Protector ability in Warlords of Draenor. Brewmasters no longer use Chi as a resource, so anything that previously cost Chi will instead cost energy, or it will be on a charge system, or it will be free to use but have a longer cooldown. Tiger Palm and Keg Smash are your only energy spending abilities. They both have secondary effects which reduce the cooldown of your brews. In 7.0, Brewmasters have been updated so they may only use two-handed weapons, so they won't be able to use any one-handed weapons or fist weapons. In Legion, their artifact weapon will be a staff called Fuzan, the Wanderer's Companion. The fantasy of a Mistweaver monk is literally wielding the mists, the power of life's essence, to restore HP and to prevent damage to their allies. Inner tranquility, meditation, and serenity help guide them and give them strength to heal for long periods of time and also to help multiple injured allies. Thematically speaking, fist weaving just didn't really make a whole lot of sense for Mistweaver monks, and if you aren't familiar, fist weaving is when you do melee attacks and as a result your allies are healed, which doesn't really line up with the story or the fantasy or the lore of what it is to be a Mistweaver monk. Now, in times prior to 7.0, the way that monks were able to fist weave was by using Stance of the Spirited Crane, which we talked about earlier, having been removed, mostly. At Honor Level 22, Mistweaver monks can unlock the Way of the Crane PvP talent, which will allow them to fist weave in a player versus player environment. If you're a PvE player who isn't willing to let go of meleeing as part of your healing kit, you still can do melee attacks in your downtime from healing. You'll just be limited as to which melee attacks you can use, but I mean, because you don't have to switch stances, it actually should be a little easier and a little more flexible to do that. Plus, there are some talents that would help you out if that's really what you want to do, but I don't think that's going to be optimal. In addition to the fist weaving changes, Mistweaver monks are getting a new mastery in 7.0. Gust of Mist causes each Effuse, Enveloping Mist, Vivify, and Essence font to trigger a small heal based on your mastery. Surging Mist is being removed and Effuse will take over its spell ID. It has a 1.5 second cast time and costs 2% of base mana or 30 energy. It heals the target for 200% of your attack power. Vivify is the new AoE healing spell. It's a 1.5 second cast that costs 4.5% base mana. Vivify causes a surge of invigorating mist around the target, healing them and their two nearest injured allies for 270% spell power. Essence Font is a new AoE healing spell. It is a channeled 3-second cast which costs 8% of base mana. Essence Font unleashes a rapid twirl of healing bolts at up to 6 allies within 25 yards, about every 1 second for 3 seconds. Each bolt heals a target for 110% of spell power plus an additional 6% of spell power over 6 seconds. Gusts of Mist will heal affected targets twice. Another change worth noting is that if a player casts a single target heal, the player will automatically cast a free soothing mist that persists until the player casts a new spell. There was probably a better time to tell you this, but we're here now, so whatever. Mistweaver monks, like Brewmasters, will no longer use chi, so yeah, that's a thing. It's also worth mentioning that for the purpose of boss abilities, Mistweavers are considered ranged, not melee, because Blizzard wants paladins to be the melee healers, not Mistweavers, which is why they also took away fist weaving from you. I'm sorry, but this is just the way things are now. I'm sorry. In Legion, Mistweaver monks will wield the artifact staff called Sheilun, Staff of Mists. The fantasy of being a Windwalker monk is pretty much already what's in game. You're going to devastate your enemy with a flurry of punches and kicks. And because they already have a lot of this in their gameplay, they'll be seeing mostly tweaks and not a lot of major changes. Some of the changes were minor, like Jab being rolled into Tiger Palm. The buffs provided by Tiger Palm and Rising Sun Kick were removed. Chi Explosion has also been removed. The biggest change for Windwalkers is that their mastery has been reworked. Combo strikes will increase the damage of your abilities by 10% when they're not a repeat of the previous ability used. This means as long as you don't use the same ability twice in a row, you can keep combo strikes up 100% of the time. Another big change is the removal of Tiger Eye Brew. The effects of Tiger Eye Brew have been rolled into Storm, Earth, and Fire, which now has 2 charges on a 45-second recharge and lasts 15 seconds. This spell should be more effective without the toggle mechanic that was used in Warlords. In Legion, Touch of Death is only available to Windwalker monks. It's also been updated to allow the monk to use it without any restrictions on the target's HP. Touch of Death has a 2-minute cooldown. After 8 seconds, the target will take damage equal to the monk's maximum health. This effect is reduced against players. In Legion, Fists of Fury can only be cast if a monk is dual wielding, so while it is still possible to equip two-handed weapons on a Windwalker, it is not optimal. The Windwalker artifact weapons in Legion are a set of 2 fist weapons called Fists of the Heavens. To recap everything that we just talked about, Blizzard is changing monks and most other classes for that matter so that their specs better match up with the fantasy of what it means to play that type of character. Brewmasters will no longer use chi and will no longer have a stance, although the stance is baked right into the specs, that's not a big deal. Guard is now a PvP talent, and most of what they're doing in-game is going to focus on staggering and evading and being unpredictable as opposed to having these big shields and these last-second clutch heals. Mistweaver monks will focus more on mist weaving and less on fist weaving. They're going to get out of melee range, move into ranged range. They're going to have some new AoE heals. They sound like they're going to be really, really strong, all things considered. Windwalker monks are pretty much still Windwalker monks with some minor changes, but still still lots of punches and kicks. So it's like, that's the TLDR of the situation. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Next up will be Paladins. Let me know in the comment section below if you play a monk, what change you are most and or least looking forward to. For me, I don't know. Like, I don't play a monk, but I do feel bad for Mistweavers who were fist weavers and now they can't even weave the fist. That's really unfortunate for them. I'm sorry. I can't say fist weaving and be an adult about it. I'm not mature enough for the word fist weaving. I am gonna go. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I love you all. You're in my hearts. I'll see you soon. Goodbye. 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 Mistweavers. Fuck. For Mistweaver. Oh my god, I hate the names of these specs. Being an evasive Brewmaster monk and not just someone who puts big shields on themselves like Paladin. Because there's no stances to switch in between, it'll actually,